Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smarketing CONNECT podcast. I'm here today with my friend Deb, and Deb is with a company called Message Artist. And as usual, I'm not going to do a lot of the talking. I'm going to let Deb kind of explain to everybody who she is and what she does. So let's just jump right into the first question, right? So Deb, tell us in a few sentences about yourself.
All right, thanks, Tom. My name is Deb Goeschel, as Tom said. I'm the owner and creative director of a company called Message Artist, which is a boutique branding and content creation company offering, obviously, branding and everything from websites to, business cards. So not many people are using those anymore. Really just working on branding, messaging, content creation, and strategy around your marketing.
So that was pretty quick. I love that because we're all used to our 30-second elevator pitches.
I know, right?
So is it when you're talking about messaging and content, is it actually writing it for them, or do you have them write it and you fix it?
Writing it for them. Much prefer that than having to edit, because it's a lot more work, generally speaking. So yes, we write the content. We create their personas, their branding, and then create whatever content that they need for whatever format.
Now, do you advise them as to what type of content they should be using, or do they already know that too?
That is very much client dependent. Some need help, some are really clear about what they want, but I work with a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs, so they tend to need a little bit more guidance, and we provide that.
It's funny you say that, because that's actually our next question is what type of companies do you work with? And you can say it, if you have a particular size or vertical, or but what typically do you like to work with?
I work with a lot of small businesses, and I've worked with nonprofits, which I love. They have to be a certain size. The nonprofits tend to be more of a mid-sized organization because, let's face it, if they're too much smaller, they don't have marketing budgets to speak of. But I do like working with them. I also have worked with a few startups, which I have found really fun. Would love to do more of that. And a lot of entrepreneurs. I do get a lot of solopreneurs as well. Although I've seen in the last year or two that shifting a little bit, which is fine for me. I love working with some bigger projects that you get when you have a company that's been around for a little bit of time. That's a lot of fun.
Now, so I like solopreneur really rings to me like super small, right? So because
Yes.
According to the SBA, small businesses are anything under 500 employees.
Right.
Do you have a particular niche or area or market that vertical that you like to play in?
I do. I think I just seem to attract it, but I get a lot of people in the sort of wellness industry, health and wellness industry.
Yeah, okay.
And sort of the nonprofits fall into that as well. So I really do enjoy, whether it's a startup or, a small business, I tend to work with clients who are what I think of as heart-centered and community-based, right? They're really mission-driven. Even if they're a for-profit, there's a vested interest in being part of their communities and helping other people, or some sort of cause-driven businesses. I really enjoy working with those types of organizations.
We might have to talk offline. I actually help run a nonprofit, so we talk later. But
yeah.
All right, so here comes the real questions, right? So small businesses, solopreneurs, all these people, we as consulting professionals have a toolbox that our go-to toolkit, right? So that what if you had just one to talk about with a small business, what would be the one that you advise them to have to use, and tell us why?
For me, I'd say come up with some sort of system to manage your marketing and your plan. So that can look a little different for certain people. For me, I use a project management system and an editorial calendar. They're actually one and the same, but I really strongly feel that small businesses have got to put in a formal system in place to manage their marketing, because otherwise it's too haphazard. And it's, you go into a flurry of marketing activity and then you go into, nothing happens. Or, you have some big thing coming up and you're focused on that one thing and everything else falls apart, and there's no consistency. And I feel like that's a big issue for a lot of small businesses. And, part of that is resources. But I do think if there's a formal system in place and you're using an actual tool to see, plan out your marketing strategy and and who's, what the content is, who's going to execute it, I think it makes it so much easier for businesses to be consistent and really get their message, their story, or whatever it is that they need to get out. So I think that's hugely important.
Now, do you have one in particular that you would recommend, or are there just too many to name, or?
There's a lot. There's a lot of ways to to go approach this. In fact, I have an hour-long webinar that I do on this topic. But personally, I've landed right now using Asana for project management, and that's not just my client side, but that's also my internal side. So my marketing strategy and plan and content is plugged into that, and I have found it to be really helpful to keep me on track and make sure I'm getting out what needs to get out when it needs to get out.
And there's a certain sense of accountability there too, right? If you have a system in place like that, then you can keep yourself accountable. I definitely appreciate that. So in this case here, Deb, a lot of times what we get called into to talk about is, some people think it's right in our title, right? I usually think it's way deeper than that. So it's not just about a simple, because you are the master of messaging, that's not the actual problem they're trying to solve. What is the real problem they're trying to solve when they typically bring you in?
They want to reach their ideal customers, and they've got something to say, something to offer, and they have no real idea of how to do it. And in order to reach your ideal customers, that's for me where messaging comes in. I find with a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses, there's also an education that has to happen, because I have, most people, like, they know what marketing is, or they have an idea of what marketing is, but not a whole lot of people new to business or small businesses really understand what messaging is and how it informs your marketing. So when they come to me and they're trying to reach their customers, that's what they're trying to do, and they don't know how to do it. And so they're looking for a copywriter, or they're looking for, they know I do marketing in a way, but I really like to say I'm a storyteller. I'm the branding person. I don't do marketing where, I don't do the big TV ads where I'm telling you this product is going to save your life, and it really isn't. Like, that's not my thing. So I want to get to the crux of who they are and what they're doing and why, so that I can tell their story to the person who needs them. And that's what they come to me every time, is they say, I know this inside and out, but I can't figure out how to say it. I can't figure out how to, get it out there. Yeah. And what I feel like is that, to develop your brand voice and your persona, if you can do that and you have a really clear idea of who that is, it's so much easier to talk about what you do, right? And what you offer.
Right.
So.
And sometimes they overcomplicate it in their own mind, right? Like, yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's a big deal. I mean, that, you spin, we all do it, right? I mean, I hire somebody to do mine, right? I don't try and do my own necessarily. Not that I don't tweak it or play with it occasionally, sure. But I'm going to spin in circle because I'm a perfectionist, and that's what we do.
So this is probably one of my favorite questions here, Deb, which is because we become trusted advisors to our clients, right? So in being in our world, sales and marketing, we're not the expert at everything sales or everything marketing. So oftentimes we're bringing in either other consultants with us, or our client says, I want to bring in another consultant. What type of advice do you give them when they're looking outside of you to get another consultant in? Like, what kind of talk track do you ask them to use, or do you give them advice at all?
Yes, I do. Basically, it comes down to, I say, you've got to be super clear about your objectives. What do you want to accomplish and why? Like, that's most important. Why do you want to do this thing? And then ask questions. I really tell people, I'm like, you need to get on the phone or get in the meeting and ask the questions, interview them. I mean, if you're going to hire somebody who's going to be an expert and this is a new relationship, you need to take the time. You've got to put in the questions. They should be asking you questions. And it's a relationship, so you have to make sure it's a good fit. Ideally, if you are working with a marketing or sales professional, you're creating a relationship that's going to have some longevity, and you become, it's very symbiotic in a way. So it's got to be a good fit, and you got to know that person has the know-how, the skills, the talent, or just the get up and go to figure it out if there's a piece they don't know. But I think the relationship piece is so important. So that's my advice. Ask questions, do a little research, do the due diligence, take the time, really.
So not only do I second all of that, but I usually on top of that tell people to make sure you select somebody that is willing to push back on you a little bit, that they're not just yes people that are going to do whatever you ask. Because sometimes what you don't know what you don't know, and you're hiring that person for their expertise. So make sure you get along really well, but there are points where you have to agree to disagree and still be friends, kind of, so to speak. So
I absolutely agree with that. I think that's a big piece that I think too often, business owners forget, like you don't need a yes person. You need somebody who's an expert at what they're doing.
Correct. So this one, I just like to be a little goofy, and you've known me for a little while now, and I'm sure this is not a surprise to you that I would ask a question like this. But I'm just going to ask, Deb, so if you could be a superhero, who would you be, and tell us why?
That's a good question. Now, of course, I'm running through all the superhero movies and TV shows that we've been watching. Pandemic offered a lot of opportunities for more watching. Not that gender has to be part of it at all, but I probably would choose Wonder Woman. And primarily because I think, she fights for the little guy. She fights for the one who's being downtrodden or, suppressed. And I think, her character is incredibly compassionate, but she's also the embodiment of female empowerment. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's pretty fabulous,
I mean, let's be realistic.
Those fun tools.
Wonder Woman's pretty badass. I mean, let's just say it like that,
She really is.
But,
yeah.
I got to be, again, I love that answer from a different perspective, because one of my biggest pet peeves in life, in business, and whatever, is people not being completely honest. And her lasso of truth, love it. I wish everybody had one. Like, I think that's the most amazing out of any superhero that they have. So I love your answer.
Oh, and that's huge. I mean, the truth is a big deal. And I look at it, and I'll tie it back to what I do, right? It's, for me, I'm finding out people's truths, right? Part of what I do in their branding is like, what's your authentic truth? Like, where are you standing in exactly your truth, who you are and what you're doing and why? And I think that's incredible, because a lot of business owners, part of what I love is as I talk to them, they learn something. They learn something about themselves and what they're doing. So yeah. And I love that lasso of truth. I think it's fabulous.
So this is, I think, the last question on our podcast, but this is an opportunity really to kind of pay it forward. Give a shout out or kudos to somebody that you've worked with in the past in our industry, some sort of sales and marketing professional that you think is great at what they do, and you'd like to give them a shout out, and potentially a future guest, by the way. So
yeah, right. Oh gosh, I know a lot of great and very talented people in the industry. There's a woman I know. I used to actually work with her in my corporate life, and she went out on her own a few years ago. Her name is Amy Graves. Amy, I'm going to actually look at her up really quick here. She does direct mail marketing for nonprofits. So her specialty is, she says, she figures out a way to tell the complicated story, or the story that no one quite knows how to deal with in the nonprofit and fundraising world. She's phenomenal at what she does. She really is. And no one else to say. I mean, she's just really good. She's a great person, and she cares. And that's partly why she likes, her niche is her niche. She works with mid-sized nonprofits as well. And she just does a phenomenal job with helping them meet their goals.
Awesome. Well, Amy, if you're listening, I'm going to tag you in this post too. So
awesome.
So that was the last question on the podcast. And so basically what I do here, Deb, is I run to your website real quick, and I take off whatever is public facing on your website. So I don't put any information on here that somebody wouldn't be able to find on your website, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to, if there's any other way that people should reach out to you, how do they contact you that's not on here?
Email is really a great way to get me. Actually, it's usually better than phone. Also on my contact page, I have a link to Calendly, so people can just book some time with me to have, because I offer anybody, if you're you know, again, because I'm all about ask the questions. So anybody who wants 30 minutes with me to just like, are we a good fit? Is this something that, you know, you can help me with, whatever? That's something they can book directly. They don't even, you know, just get on my calendar.
Very cool.
So.
And if you remember nothing else, Deb is one of our professionals on Smarketing Connect. So you can find Deb at smarketingconnect.com,
Yes.
or you can reach out to me and I can make the connection for you. Either way, if you're watching this and you want to get a hold of Deb, we can make sure that that happens for you, especially if you're interested in the services she provides. But that's pretty much it. That's a wrap. So Deb, thank you so much for being a guest, and
Thank you, Tom.
we're looking forward to having you again.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.